Right, well, just starting off where I left the last video I did at the Brunswick Centre. Can't get enough of the Brunswick Centre, quite frankly. And I'm just going to walk around to another notable building in the area. There's quite a lot, actually, of notable buildings in the Bloomsbury area. It's an area that was fairly well heeled, and you've got all the educational things like the University of London. This building here was originally built for McAlpines, I believe, the building company. Whether it be Sir Robert McAlpine or the other McAlpine companies, the civil engineering company, construction company. On the other side of the road we have Russell Square Station, which was built in the early 1900s, and it is a Leslie Green, I think his name is. Leslie Green is the architect, or a Leslie, and I always think this is interesting, not just purely for the architecture, but just some of the little quirky things. Like if you have a look here, you'll see that there are plants growing out of the building, which isn't really a good thing, but it's interesting all the same. But as we move around the building, you'll see, as you can see from here, that this building just basically came in and landed and took out some of the older buildings that are here. So you can see there's a fireplace there, and you can also see where they've taken bricks out. Now, whether or not that is a sign of the fact that when they built this, they assumed at a later stage that they would build on top of it and that they could link the bricks into that space. I've talked about that before with the University of London buildings. On the other side, you've got some other fireplaces, and again, where those bricks could be left to link in. So they probably thought there was going to be a single story built to join up, but it never happened. There's a little feature of the area. And always a little thing to look at, some of these details, which a lot of people miss out on. But how could you miss that? Where basically that was someone's fireplace in their room before this block was taken out of the tube station. So we're now walking past a big selection of eating places, which is the only thing that seems to actually do well these days, is places to eat. Eat. Keep eating. It's important to stay alive. We're now moving on to Herbrand Street. This large building here is the Russell Hotel. An incredible piece of architecture. And I believe the architect for that, the same architect for the Waterstones building in Gower Street, which was, before that was a Dillon's. So the reason I'm on here is for the building that we're just going to see in the distance, which is referred to by a lot of people as the Daimler Car Hire Building. Although Daimler haven't been in this building since possibly, I'd imagine, the 1950s. But it was a garage. It was a place to park your car, but it was also where you could hire Daimler cars. When Daimler cars were a thing, and when luxury cars were something that people only thought about hiring out necessarily and not owning. So this building was put up in the mid-1930s, and the architectural practice responsible for it was the same architectural practice that was responsible for the Hoover building in Perivale in West London, and also the Firestone factory on the Great West Road in Brentford, which was pulled down in 1980. Now you'll notice I'm not actually saying who that architectural practice is, because for some unfathomable reason I've actually forgotten. That's incredible. But anyway, that's not important, the building is. So as well as being a place where people could park their car, where they could hire out vehicles, there would have been a workshop for repair of vehicles, and it's interesting that we had the Daimler Car Hire Building is not that far away from Store Street and where the Daimler showrooms were. So Daimler had quite a presence in the Bloomsbury area, which of course was, and still is to some degree, a wealthy area. So this spirally bit is where cars could drive up. So they went through where these people were going into that building. That was the entrance. The cars would drive in and they would go round in a cycle around that trunk bit, which would have had windows in it. But now that's a space occupied by Thought Machine, which is, I can't remember what they do, but basically it's, you know, something exciting. It was originally, up until recently, the headquarters for McCann, which was an advertising agency, creative, marketing, etc. So, yes, and lots of really lovely detailing that I will always find myself looking at and taking photographs, especially when you get particularly nice light conditions. But it is a riot of sort of, I will say Art Deco, but it's more sort of like streamlined, modern motifs. So you have these really nice curvy bits. Curvy bits, yes, that's the technical word. But lots of interesting like features, like that semicircular bit or a quarter circle there. That would have been also an entrance or exit point. You have lots of little windows and doorways. It's a riot of curves and fluting. You have a nice little doorway here, which I suppose was like an exit point or an entrance point into perhaps the offices for the business. Just going to turn around and look at that now. There we go. Let's see, you've got some nice little features there. It is an endlessly photogenic building, and remarkably it survives, although it is of course listed. That is the chimney for obviously the heating of that building there, which is actually the same building as where I said McAlpines were, but that is a Holiday Inn hotel, so that was all part of the same structure. So we're now to Coram Street, and this is sort of residential, 20s, 30s residential stuff, and hotel land too. And what we're coming up to here on this side, on this side, we've got a bag of shopping in one hand, is Russell Court, which is I would think it's 1930s residential block. Now I can tell you reliably that in this door here, through that door there and into the basement of the building down there used to be the offices for a photographic agency called Camera Press Limited, and I worked for Camera Press, but not when they were there. They moved to Queen Elizabeth Street, which is near Tower Bridge. They moved there in the early 1990s, but they had been at Coram Street since I think the 1960s. Could be wrong, but yes, that's where they operated from, in a really quite tight space. This used to be, on the corner, was a garage. So in garage, it was actually a petrol station. And so I worked for Camera Press for about, 5 years, between 1999 and 2004. And I was told that when they used to go and get the pay packets, they used to walk round past that garage, or that petrol station, which is now Shoreguard, with all the money in bags on a tray. Apparently, that's what I was told. So yes, that bit there, the curvy bit, that is another car park, I believe, which is why you got Shoreguard. They've taken that over. Here we have the Royal National Hotel, which up until a few months ago had some really fantastic 1970s plastic orange signage, and then they took that all off and replaced it with no signage at all, which is a shame. But I particularly like this building, so I'm just going to try and cross the road safely. I like this building because it's another one of these, early 1970s buildings, which is unashamedly concretey and brutal. It has some really nice features. Try not to get run over. It's this sort of machine building stuff. We also have, as part of this structure, something called the London Pub. Imagine that, a pub just is called the London Pub. It exists and it's there. So there is the entrance into the car park for this hotel. And I love all these, the shapes with the slabs. Brilliant. Big vent for something there. And then this is the sort of courtyard bit of the hotel where all the taxis come in and the coaches. So now, actually, I've got this video going long enough that I can actually feature the front of the Institute of Education, which is another brutalist building. That's what I said in a previous video, that Bloomsbury is full of brutalist stuff and big megastructures, and you really don't get much bigger than this one as we come through the entrance or exit. Yeah, that is the Institute of Education, which was completed in the mid to late 70s, and those big structures at the top, I believe, are lift gear. It's probably water storage, but you couldn't actually get a more brutal building than that, really. Well, you can in Cumbernauld in Scotland, but looks lovely, I think, in the summer. You've got the trees and the leaves, and it breaks it up a little bit because it is a very brutal structure. There's lots of little sort of features on there that I like, which I'll just sort of point out. Here, look, these bits, which I assume are staircases or something inside, but it's just like, let's just put a sort of triangular shape in there. And then we have underneath that, you've got these planters, which I think probably are a later addition, but they're concrete, because you can see the shuttering, as it's called. They're basically wooden planks are put in, and they pour the concrete in, and so you get the wood pattern come through. But underneath there is a vent, see? So one imagines that underneath all of this lot there is something. It's probably a car park, because most of these buildings had car parks underneath them. So it's a later brutalist building. This is really coming to the end of brutalism in the late 70s and into the early 80s, when it basically then went completely out of fashion, and you had the beginnings of postmodernism, which is a very different sort of thing. So yes, this is 26 Bedford Way, because I'm on Bedford Way, and I'll just show you the entrance to this place, or one of the entrances. And it is quite ugly in its own way, but it's magnificently ugly. Yeah, with this sort of staircase going in, and then it's just exposed concrete. For a lot of people, they find this sort of thing pretty ugly, but it has come back into fashion in its own way. Got a bit of ghost signage here where it said 26 Bedford Way. I don't know whether you can make that out. Maybe I should zoom in so you get a bit of closer view of that. Yep, there we go, 26 Bedford Way. So this video, as with quite a few of them, I never know quite how it's going to go. I mean to do one that's a bit more structured, and I actually will put together, not a script, but I will put a sort of working order, and I need to get dates and stuff. So actually I am trying to finesse my videos, put a bit of planning into them, but I don't really want to take away the spontaneity. Here's another little thing just before I finish off. 55 to 59 Gordon Square, and this I think used to be a doorway. You can make out some other signage here. It says Carbide House. And again, I'm just going to zoom in. carbide house. So this is a remnant of what this building's former life was. There would have been a company called Carbide something or other that was involved with something or other to do with carbide, I guess. I don't know. There was a company called Union Carbide. It's an American company. I don't know whether it's the same thing. I doubt it. Nice bit of see these would have been probably iron supports for this balcony bit. So that is that. So I mean, actually you could probably join together some of these videos and you actually create some kind of structure, because I've shot bits here and bits there and they will all sort of join up, because this is taking me back to where I work, the Warburg Institute and Woburn Square. So this is probably quite a good place to sort of finish off. Nice little quiet spot. So thank you very much for watching this one. A bit longer than that's the last one I just shot. But so this is what I've done in my lunchtime. Yes, there we go. So thank you for watching. I'll leave it there.